All right. We are back. So it's Allison and Laura, and we are chatting adoption again. So as a reminder, I'm an adoptee and an adoptive parent.
And I'm Laura Khoury, and I am an adoptive parent of two girls.
And we are both children's book authors around the topic of adoption. So today we are going to discuss Laura's book and talk about how it's different than the current books on the market.
Yes. So my book again is The Tale of Mallory Mouse, From Foster Care to Adoption. And it is the true story of our daughter's adoption from foster care. So what I like about it is that it's completely different from books that I found on the market in general, because there just aren't a ton of books that include foster care on the market, period. So that's what I liked best about it, but also it's my daughter's story. So it includes kind of just exactly what happened in her situation. And I wanted it to be a book that other children who are adopted out of foster care can read, can identify with. It can also be used to kind of explain foster care or explain adoption to children who aren't in that situation, just to kind of learn about how other families come to be. But I think it's different definitely from other books because right from the beginning, the very beginning is Mallory Mouse was loved from the very first she was born, or the moment she was, I think that's how I can't remember exactly how I worded it, but it's a picture of her birth mom and Mallory is inside her belly. And I wanted to make sure that the birth mother was illustrated, which is something that outside of your book, I haven't really seen a lot of that. And we kind of went back and forth on how to make the birth mother look in that book. So I worked really hard with the illustrator, and she was really great about, we had kind of the tone and the colors be red and some shades of pink to show, that she was loved and feel really warm. And the only thing that I really do know about my daughter's birth mother is the way she physically looked, and that was that she was beautiful. And so that's how I wanted this, even though it was a mouse, I wanted this to look.
I love that.
So yeah, it was a really sweet part. And the illustrator had the idea of kind of having like a through line with this little bow that in the beginning birth mom was holding. And then when she says goodbye at the hospital, she's birth mom's still holding it in her hand. And then eventually it's in the incubator with the little mouse. And once the Mallory Mouse gets a little bit older, it's a bow she wears on her head. And so she's kind of always has it on her head. It's really sweet.
I've heard about this a million times. I still cry.
Yeah, it's really sweet. And it's just, just that she's always a part of her. So I wanted that to be in the books. I don't think that a lot of books go into that at all. And I wanted birth mom in the book.
And from an adoptee's perspective, I just have to tell you, it is very important. And I do think young adoptees are looking for that. Yes. I think they're looking to see this piece that has been missing in so many other books. And that's why I teared up is I love that. I love the gift and the gift and how much it means to this child and how she's carrying that through her life. I love that part.
Yeah, it's really sweet. It is. The next part that is in this book that really also isn't addressed is the foster family. I wanted it to be from the mouse's perspective, that all of these people loved and cared for her. And I recently met an adoptee. It was actually after I wrote it into the book, but she was telling me that she had spent some time in a foster home and her adoption was closed and she didn't know who these people were, but she knew that they took time every single day and they would write like a little message to her of how she was doing, how she was eating, what she was wearing or whatever, and she said she's kind of looking for these people because she would like to thank them because
it's part of her story.
Yeah. And in our case, we are dear friends with my daughter's foster family. And so she gets to hear it from them. They get to tell her these stories and everything. But I wanted that to be part of the book. I think sometimes it's just sort of the forgotten part because maybe it's unknown. But even if it's unknown, it still happened. And there's these wonderful people who did love your child and did take care of your child. And they, in cases with infant adoption or a foster to adopt, somebody took care of this child while they were a baby. So I wanted that to be a part of it. And I wanted to make sure that the love that they felt was present. And then the part that some people who early reviewed it were kind of like, I don't know, maybe you could take that part out, but it was sort of the back and forth that she spent, which is challenging. And I, tried to make it pretty light in the book, but in this case, the back and forth included going back and forth between the foster home and the forever home because the adults, I worded it that the adults needed to make the final plans about where Mallory would go and how long that would take. And to Mallory, that was confusing. And, so we tried to make some of that be part of the illustration and some of that be part of the text. And then if that's the situation that the reader has faced, then they can talk about it there. But, even in that part, the text goes on to say, even though she did sometimes wonder where she belonged, she, felt joy when she would see the loving eyes of her foster family and those of her equally loved adoptive family. So everybody, worked through it and everybody loved her through all of that, even though it was confusing,
which is important why it's highlighted in a book like this.
Yes, of course. Yeah. And then, other than that, the kind of the remainder of the book is just your typical adoptive story. In the end, I wanted to make sure to put in the way it looked at the courthouse when the adoption was finalized and how joyful that was. And in our case, in the illustration, the adoptive family and the foster family were all there and they were just super joyful. And then kind of the story ends as Mallory Mouse is a little bit older, and I love it because it's just like one part of who she is as this strong and amazing little mouse, just like in our real situation where my daughter is a million things and an adoptee is just one of them. So I hope that it helps kids who need to see themselves in literature and families who need to read stories or need to explain stories and explain situations to children.
So. I think it's wonderful. And you guys stay tuned. It is coming out January, February of next year, 2023.
Yes.
All right. We'll keep you guys posted. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks.
Bye.